How long have we got?
Great, yeah.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, Trinity High School. Welcome to Manchester Metropolitan University in British Science Week. We're going to be looking at something today which affects us all, which is our teeth. This is quite new for me as well, doing a YouTube live broadcast, so you'll have to bear with me as best you can. So let's look first. The activity is called Bluetooth, and quite simply, it's nothing to do with mobile phone radios. We are going to be making a tooth that is blue. My name's Peter Gough, and I'm a senior lecturer in dental technology at Manchester Met. So let's have a look at the agenda for today, what we're going to be doing. First of all, we're going to look at what tooth inlays are. Okay, so we're going to look at how the dentist can put inlays in your teeth. We're going to look how your teeth are actually numbered. We're going to look at what each of your teeth do, and we're going to find out how to actually make a tooth inlay. The one you're going to be making today is much bigger, probably 6 or 7 times bigger than you'd actually have to do for real. If you just look down at your hands, put your hands flat on the table and look at your smallest fingernail. Now often that's the size of the largest crown that we would make, or largest inlay. So we're working to very small tolerances on very small things that should last about 25 years if we make them properly. So we'll learn how to do, how to make a tooth inlay. And as well as me doing it, and you see in a short video on how to make one, you're actually going to make one as well. So at some point today, you will have made an inlay. So what are inlays? Now you're all young, you're all 13 to 14, and your teeth should all be wonderful. If you just have a look at the person next to you and show them your smile, hopefully you've got a full set of pearly whites there. But sometimes people don't look after the teeth, and as we can see in this picture here, the dentist has prepared the teeth. The bits where we've got new material are where the dentist has trimmed away, and the blue outline you can see is the restoration or inlay, in this case made out of a ceramic material called porcelain, and these would be made in a laboratory indirectly, and then into the clinic they would take out the temporary inlays, they put some new glue underneath these and seal them in, and they should last around 25 years if we make them properly. So what about your teeth? Well, we're all given a full set. To start with, you're given 2 sets actually. You're given your deciduous teeth, which you have when you're a child, and your permanent teeth when you're older. And if you don't look after them, too much sugar and acidic drinks, even fruit juices, can be damaging to your tooth enamel. You have to have them taken out, but occasionally, in fact more often, the teeth can be repaired. The dentist can trim some of the badness away and can make a crown or an inlay that fits over the tooth to make it better and restore its shape again. Okay, and this is the work of what we do here at MMU, and it's called dental technology, and it's the work of a dental technologist. And today at Trinity High School, you are going to be dental technologists yourself. So we're going to start with something you may have heard when you've been in the clinic with the dentist themselves, and you'll hear them saying lots of numbers to the dental nurse who stood behind them, putting your details into the computer. And if we look at this smile, we have different quadrants numbered like a clock face, 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is your upper right quadrant, upper left quadrant, lower left quadrant, and lower right quadrant. Now you might think I've got that wrong because this is obviously on your right side, but this is the patient's left side. So we have upper right, upper left, lower right. So we bear in mind each of these quadrants. The tooth at the nearest to the line we call, that would be tooth 1, 1, tooth 1, 2, tooth 1, 3, tooth 1, 4. Same here, tooth 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, and so on. Now later on, as we get into this, there's going to be a question, so try and identify which tooth we're actually making. When you see the question mark, bear in mind these quadrants and see if you can find out which is the tooth that we're going to be working on today. So what do each of your teeth do? Well, if we look at this set, you can see they're all different shapes. Sometimes the teeth are for cutting, or we call incising. That's why they call them incisors. When you bite through an apple, you automatically put the apple to the front of your mouth because these are the cutting teeth. then when you're trying to tear open a packet or a sweet packet or a crisp packet, you tend to put it in the corner of your mouth where you've got your tearing teeth, your canines. The flatter teeth, this is where you move your food around when you're ready to chew, when you're trying to trim through food. What I'd like you to do now is something people don't often associate with dental technology, and it's the importance of allowing people to speak. I want you to turn and face the person sat next to you and start with any word that begins with F or V, like football, but don't get beyond the first consonant, so don't get beyond the first F. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to look at each other, and then I want you to tell me where your upper teeth bite onto. So just 30 seconds, try and say a word that begins with F or V, but don't get beyond the first consonant. Okay, if you've got it right, your words beginning with F or V should all begin with you biting into your lower lip. Now imagine if we were setting teeth or making teeth for patients and we don't put them in the right positions, then the patient literally can't speak. They can't certainly start words beginning with F or V. And ultimately, when patients come into clinics, they're more interested not in being able to speak properly, they just want to know, is it going to make them look nice? Is it going to make them look young again? We're not unique, of course, in the world with having teeth. All these types of teeth, we can see them in a horse as well. Their incisors, when they tear away at the grass on the floor, they're using the incisors to actually tear the grass off the floor, and then they move it back to a rather enormous set of molars where they grind the grass before they swallow it. So we've all got teeth. So I asked you a question earlier about the quadrants in your mouth, and you'll see a tooth circled here. Again, I'll just give you 30 seconds to try and decide which tooth this is. Right, let's see you got it right. If you remember, we had the quadrants we looked at before, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is quadrant 1, patient's upper right. This is the patient's upper left, quadrant 2, and it's tooth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So identify this particular tooth, the one you're going to be making today, as a 2-6. So it's an upper left molar. Right as we look at it, but it's the patient's left. So let's have a look at that now. You'll have been given some models at some point which looks like this, and you'll also have a cavity, which is where we're going to make, hopefully yours will look as nice as this when you've finished, but this is the sort of shape we're going for, and it's an exact copy of this. Now the material that we're going to use, hopefully your teacher hasn't given you this yet, for one good reason I'll show you shortly. Okay, the material that we're going to use handles very much the way that plasticine does. We can push it around, we can mold it. Unlike plasticine, this material will set solid when it's exposed to some certain conditions. Now, we really have picked the right day, Manchester, because we have sunshine, and that is exactly what we are going to use. When you've finished your restorations, you're going to ask your teacher to put them on the windowsill, and sunshine will ultimately, it's the ultraviolet in sunshine that will make them set. Now in the lab we're in, we don't have any sun coming through the window at the moment, but we do have a light cure box, which is a little box which simulates sunlight, so we'll be using one of those today. So I'm going to show you a short video. For this point, please don't follow along yet, just watch the video so you've got it in your mind's eye. Following the video, we're going to begin the actual practical activity. We've got 2 people who are going to do it here with us, and you can follow them along. I'll just introduce you to those first. On the left we have
Mirna.
And on the right we have
Hannah.
Hannah. Okay. So I'm going to run the video now. It's just under 8 minutes long, and it's the complete walkthrough of the activity that you're going to do today. But say please don't do the activity yet, because we're going to break it down into the stages and give you plenty of opportunity to get it right. Another thing I would really encourage you to do is, as you're working, there's 34 of you there, I would encourage you to check each other's work. I know We're often told not to look at other people's work, but I'm positively encouraging it today, because we're making the same case, and hopefully the things you make will all look the same at the end. Okay, so I encourage you to actually look at other people's work and see if we're all getting the same result. So let's just run the video. I'll talk you through it. Okay, I'm looking here at breaking the tooth down into different areas. Now this is very fast. I do this very fast, so please take your time when we do it. We're first going to line the cavity, and we're going to take much longer than this in the actual activity to make sure we get it right, but breaking off small amounts. Please don't be tempted to get the entire amount and just shove it in. You'll cause yourself lots of problems. So after we've lined the cavity, we need to look at each of these separate cusps, and you'll notice that some are quite pointed, some are quite large, some are quite flat. So I created a shape which is roughly mimics that shape. I'm going to adapt it onto the tooth, and then you've got a selection of plastic spatulas and instruments available to you. I prefer the ones that are quite flat rather than the ones that are pointed. And you can see I'm not really carving the material, I'm just pushing the surfaces around. At the moment you can see that this, just wait till I move my fingers out of the way, I'm cutting off the extensions. It should go right up to the edge of the preparation. In dental technology and dentistry, if it doesn't go right up to the edges, we call it a ditched restoration, and it encourages food to be trapped in between those areas. So don't overbuild it. Just imagine if you did make it too big, the patient would bite together and the jaws wouldn't meet properly. They'd only meet in one point where you'd made the crown. So try not to cut it, just push and press it into place. The real trick to this is to look at it in 3 dimensions. Look at it from the left, right, from the top, from the back, rather than just the plan view you see there. So keep looking at it in all different directions. This is the distal palatal cusp, as we call it here, and this one you'll notice on your model is a lot flatter. It's nearly a square. So I'm trying to reproduce the shape there as we go through. And you can see it's overextended. I'm just cutting the excess off so it fits right into the preparation margin. Now, we have run this demonstration for adults. We've run it for 8-year-olds, so I'm sure you, being 13 and 14, should be absolutely fabulous at this. This is the largest cusp. This is what we call the medial palatal cusp. It's the one towards the front of the mouth and nearest the tongue. And you'll notice that this is the biggest of the lot. It's quite rounded and bulbous. So keep checking the angles with the spatula and trying to reproduce them on the copy that you're going to make. So just small corrections here and there. Keep looking left and right, back and forwards, top to bottom. Look at it from as many angles as you can and keep referencing this one. We're trying to copy this exactly. Now this small amount is going to go across the front. Okay, that's what we call in dentistry the marginal ridge, and it's where it would normally contact the tooth next to it. So a little bit in there. You'll notice that there's what we call primary carving, which is the main shape of the tooth, and then you'll see little lines within the tooth that we call secondary carving. And as you can see, this is quite an enormous tooth. In reality, as we said earlier, remember it's the size of your fingernail when you're making this for real in a dental laboratory. Thousands of these are made every day up and down the country. Lots of people love eating sugar, and this is what keeps us all in business. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the video. We've probably got just a few more minutes to go on this, so if I could ask your teachers if they could make sure you've all got a copy, you've all got a model, and they've also got a piece of light cure material, perhaps 2 pieces, and a selection of spatulas. So just while this video runs out, if I can make sure that you've all got the pieces ready to start the live demonstration following this video. When you get to this stage, it's just a process of refinement now, and checking, double checking that you've got things the right shape, the right height, the right relationship to other parts of the tooth, checking that it goes right up to the preparation margin but not beyond it. So it's the devil is in the detail now. Okay, I think we've seen enough of that now, so we're going to move our camera. If you just give us a couple of minutes to reset up, and we're going to take our time with this, so you've got plenty of opportunity to produce a really nice restoration. So just give us a couple of moments and we'll move over to the other demo site. Get yourself some instruments. Anywhere you can find out if they're ready to go. Yeah, you just tell them to type. Just tell them. Okay. Just ask. Okay, could I just ask you to type in to YouTube Live when you're ready to go, please? And then as soon as we've got the okay from you, we'll start it at this end. Give me. No. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. So, please. What's your name? Hannah. Myrna. Myrna.
Yeah.
Myrna. How should I say?
Myrna.
Myrna. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. My name's Pete, but everyone calls me Petty.
How should I job doing this?
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
So like you put the whole thing in.
We're not ready yet.
Right, so we'll just do it with what you lose.
Okay, go on. Should have had them on the phone. Yeah. Yep. Okay, to my right is Myrna and Hannah. I keep forgetting I've asked them 3 times already today. So we're going to start just by taking a small amount of the light cure resin, and then hopefully Devin can zoom in and watch what we're doing. So we'll take our time getting this really well adapted. Just use your fingers for this. So that's to fit right the way in to the preparation margin. If you've not got enough, take it off in just small amounts. Remember to keep checking with the person next to you and see if theirs looking the same as yours. Okay. The preparation margin is the outer of these 2 lines. I'm not sure if you can see them, but there's 2 lines, and that's almost like a facet. We're going to the outer of those 2, and this is representative of what the dentist would have done in the mouth. So that's the first stage, to line the cavity, and exactly the same would happen in the clinic by the dentist. If they can do this 2 ways, they can do it indirectly, which means the inlay is made in a laboratory and then it is fitted into the patient's mouth, or they can do it directly, where they build up different layers of composite material that are tooth colored directly in the patient's mouth, and that's what this is sort of showing. So this would be built up first, and then it would be cured with ultraviolet light inside the patient's mouth, and the next layer would be built up. So there's 2 ways: there's indirect and direct. So it's pretty much the same process with both, one done by the dental technician and one done by the dentist. Right, if we look at it now, we can see that there are 4 distinct, what we call cusps. One of them is clearly bigger than the rest, and this is the mesial palatal cusp. I'm going to leave that till the end. I'm going to work my way around from the mesial buccal, distal buccal, distal palatal, mesial palatal. So I'm going to start with this one, and if we look at it, you can see it's almost like an almond teardrop shape. So I'm going to begin by making something that will fit that area. I'm just going to tear off something about the size of a garden pea and roll it into a teardrop shape that is similar in size to the one that's here. Put that in place, and then I'm going to just check this angle here. So I almost get my spatula at that angle and transfer that angle across to here.
Which tool do you use?
Yeah, the spatulas that you've got, you'll see we've got a variety of different shapes. The pointed ones are probably not as good to do this, and the ones that are really sharp, I prefer the ones that are quite sort of flat at the end. This one is probably the best of the lot, so whoever's got these has got the easier ones. But these are great for adapting, because they say we don't want to cut it, we just want to push it around. So you can use whichever you find is most effective. So I'm just trying to pick up that angle now and bring that over. Now you can see, hopefully, that it's overlapping, it's too big, it's outside the preparation margin. So at this point, you just push it against the outside, and you can see we've got the beginnings of a cusp. This material will feel sticky, but don't worry, there is no health and safety worry with this, because this is designed to be used in the patient's mouth. So you will feel a bit sticky, but if you wash your hands following the activity today, it'll be fine.
How yours, man?
Let's see how mine is getting on.
This looks alright.
I did it on the wrong side.
Oh.
You started again. So I'm looking down on the model, and if I look from the angle I'm looking at, I'll try and give you the same shot. As I'm looking down here, and I can see I'm trying to match this one, and if this one is too high, I think you probably see it's a little bit too high there, so I'll need to reduce that down just by looking at it from all these different angles. Check it from the top as well. So I've got plenty of time to get it right. I'll just leave that there for a moment, and I'll see how my team's getting on here. See how Hannah's doing. Okay, so it's actually easier if you keep it on the deck. There's only one thing moving there. Rather than hold it up in the air, it's sometimes easier to keep it flat. So there's only one thing moving, which is your hand. Yeah, that's looking nice as well. So if we look at this, yeah, that's looking all right. I think I've got somebody after my job here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first cusp, and I'm going to move on onto this one. I think my time will be best spent if I just show you how to do it and then give you the actual time to do it yourself. We're going to do the disto buccal. Disto as in towards the back, and buccal, which means towards the cheeks. So this is towards the back of the mouth, and this is where the cheeks would rub against. This is where the tongue would rub against. So I'm going to try and reproduce this quadrant here. So again, I've cut a piece off. That's about the right size. I'm going to start off and get that cut there. And then I can see it's almost a perfect square. I can use that as a guide, really. It's quite flat, this one, in relation to the others. ask Devon to see if he can have a look at this one and see how it's starting to develop. Incidentally, dental strategy is one of the only areas, if not the only area, perhaps only after reconstructive science, that you need to be creative. So you're making things that have to simulate nature. In a way, being in the special effects business, you have to fool people into what they're actually seeing is real, but it's false. So it's the only really creative division of healthcare.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Right, so let's see how Hannah's doing. Okay, right, I would get yourself another little piece on there, try and build that up a little bit more. Yeah, that's just a little bit undefined. Finding it easy?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Finding it easy. How's Hannah doing? Yeah, that's looking good. Yeah, got good proportion, good relation to each other. And we can see that's coming on quite nice. Quite well. I'd say the only thing with this one is that ridge is really quite well defined. This one's a little bit flatter. It's a little bit too sharp. It's for grinding more than cutting. The next one I'm going to do is the biggest cusp of the lot. This is the one that really defines this tooth and sets it apart from the second molar, the 7. The 2.7 would be behind this, and the 2.5 would be in front of it. But the cusp that really defines this particular tooth is this huge medial palatal cusp. Occasionally they'll have another little cusp on the side called the cusp of Carabelli, but not everybody has it. You might, if you just have a feel inside your mouth and brush your tongue up against your molars, you may feel a little ridge sticking out the side of your tooth. That's called the cusp of Carabelli, and not everybody's got those. I know I haven't. So I've created now something which is more or less the same shape as the mesiopalatal cusp. I'm going to put that in place and just have a look where it is. So it's way too big to start with, so I'm going to gradually reduce it. Remember, try not to cut it. If you try and just push and adapt the material gently rather than cut it. Now the bit that's left over, that's easy to actually slice at the edge. So I've got the makings now of a mesiopalatal cusp. Just checking all the angles match up. Remember, keep looking, keep comparing. So look at it now from the side, look at it from the top, look from the back, look from the front. Just keep checking all these different angles. Okay, let's see where we're up to. So I'm going to go next. I've got a couple of things to do. The final cusp I need to add, which is distal palatal, which is this one here, the smallest of the lot. It's almost.
Should we check on the others?
Yeah. Should we check how Myrna's getting on?
Myrna?
Yeah. So yeah, if we look at Myrna's, she's clearly got this big cusp, which is fine, which sort of defines this tooth. But if anything, it might have come just a little bit too far over the centre line. So you need to just bring that back a little bit. Can you see there?
Yeah.
That needs to come back just a little bit. So you will have what we call a central groove. So try and make sure that at some point you've still got this central groove that goes down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a nice look at Hannah's. Again, the only thing I would say with this at the moment is we've got a bit of a step here. So rather than use an instrument, you can use an instrument. You just pull it down. that. Perhaps use a finger as well. And you can see where it meets the tooth is a lot more natural. Okay, it's looking really good.
Is that better?
Yeah, so I can just sort of help you with this. That's looking okay. Yeah, these are coming on really nice. Okay, right. I'm going to now go on to the Distal Palatal, which is the smallest one here. So I've taken a very small piece of light cure resin, just put it in the right place, and then start adapting it down. Keep checking it's in the right place. Always making reference to the one on the opposite side. If we look at this now, hopefully you can see that this is way too pronounced. It's way too high and curved. We want it more like this one, which is flatter. So the way I do that is to get my instrument set at the right angle and gradually flatten it down, and then the excess I can trim away like so. What do you think, Devin? How's that looking?
Yeah, this looks good.
The only bit that I'm looking at here, I'm going to come back to it in a moment after I've checked Myrna's and Hannah's, see how they're getting on. So if we have a look over to your left, you can see that's quite a nice result. First time you've done this? Or yeah, first time she's done this. But we've got good definition, we've got good extension up to the preparation margin, and we've got clear indication that that's the biggest of the cusps. What I would try and ask you to do now is, if you look at that angle there, we have an angle here. You can try and reproduce that angle, because at the moment it comes across quite flat. So you need to set your blade at that angle, and if I just get you a start on it, I'll give you this sort of idea. You see now?
Yeah.
And then you just need to develop this distal palatal cusp.
Okay, thank you.
How's Hannah doing? This is Hannah's. I think just a couple of things. The general shape is fabulous. Just a little bit more into this preparation margin. We've got a bit of a gap there. Imagine food would get stuck in there and start to decay the tooth. And also, just here a little bit more. We need a little bit more extension right up to the edge, the outer of the two lines. And then you're up to the same stage I am, where we need to develop this marginal ridge, which is the last bit.
Do you know these gaps, would we like replicate them? Because
this is a good question we've had from Hannah. Do we reproduce these lines? Well, the simple answer is, when we're doing crowns, yes, because it's not going to decay, because it's ceramic, so it's not going to decay. But in natural teeth, there's a lot of children, you may have had this yourself, the dentist will actually put a very thin layer of what we call fissure sealant in the patient's mouth, and it just stops food collecting in the V-shapes. So they round them all out. It's called fissure sealant. And my wife used to live in Australia, and children automatically have fissure sealant as part, just when they grow up. So all the teeth are sealed. So just to prevent that exact thing, so it stops plaque collecting and caries developing in those deep grooves. But of course, when we're doing a removable device like this, or a restoration, it doesn't really matter, because it's not a biological material, it's artificial.
What are you doing there?
The final touch is to develop this, what we call a marginal ridge. Now, in a normal case, the second premolar would be sat here where my finger is. I'm trying to make sure I get good contact. So at the moment there isn't much there, so I'm trying to get a good marginal ridge, and the tooth that meets this would also have a marginal ridge and that also stops food from slipping down in between the two teeth. So that's the final part really, is to develop this marginal ridge.
You just point at it again.
Yeah, this is the marginal ridge. We have one at the front,
Yep.
and we have one at the back as well.
Okay.
So I'm just developing the marginal ridge. It's only quite small in this one. And then just a final check, that's a little bit sharp. I'm looking at it from the side, just seeing that that's a little bit sharp and that one's quite flat. Just flattening that down a touch. Okay, let's move on to the finishing stages now. And we talked earlier about, or quite recently in fact, we talked about the secondary carving, primary carving, secondary carving. And for this, I tend to use the sharper of the tools that have got more of a point. It's not so easy if you've got these serrated edges, so if you've got one of those, perhaps find a different tool if you can borrow it from a friend sat next to you. But if we look now and take each tooth, each cusp, sorry, separately, you can see that in that cusp we have a line that runs from the center around the side and then from the center around the side. So that shows itself like this. So we start at the center, we're going to bring this around, and that's the first part of the secondary carving, and this one around here. So let's reproduce that. Okay,
That's a good shot.
so there's the secondary carving, and then we've also got one on the distal buccal cusp just inside there. So let's just create that one. We've also got one that comes just around this medial palatal, which comes around here, and an ever so slight one which runs down there. So hopefully yours will look something like that, starting to take shape. Remember, as we said earlier, check with your neighbour. Have a look at the person to your left, to your right, opposite the table from you, and you should be looking at the same results. If you're doing really, really well, perhaps you can help the person who's next to you. Remember, we're looking at proportion and relation, and look at it from all the different sides. So look at it from this view, look at it from behind, look at it from on top, and when you get to this stage, it's just a process of refinement now, looking where it needs slight adjustments. The majority of the materials in place, and it's just finalizing. It's like doing a Rubik's Cube. You've got all but one side done. It's just a matter of getting the final bits into place. Let's see how Myrna's doing. Well, I think you've got a future in dental technology. Yeah, you can come and join us here. That's looking really good. It's met the prescription. We've got a restoration which goes to the preparation margin. We've got a clear definition of the cusps, some secondary carving in there. Yeah, you're through to the next round, as they say. Let's have a look at Hannah. Okay, well, the one thing we just need to look at here, it's a very good restoration, but you should be drawing your eye to this where it's slightly overextended. I don't know if you can just see, you just need to take a little bit of that off. We're talking such, demanding tolerances. When you're making a crown that's going to last 25 years or an inlay, even the slightest overextension or underextension can be somewhere where food will get lodged, and then the patient will be back having more teeth repaired at some stage. So how are we doing? So there's the three. If we put them together, they're not too bad. They're quite similar to the teeth that we've got. You're always going to get, because dental technology is both an art and a science, you're always going to get some creativity. You're going to get one person interpreting something in a different way. So as long as that's perfectly normal. We have I had a class of 20 students this morning, and even though they all ended up with the same work, they look slightly different because they put their sort of artistic skills into it towards the end. Okay, so let's give you a few more minutes to finish off and have a look at each other's work, and then we'll invite questions if you have any towards the end when you start to finish off.
That's good. Yeah, thanks. I've got a question.
Yep.
How did you get into becoming a dentist?
Into dental technology, I've got a very strange background. I used to write video games. I used to be a programmer. I used to write video games. I worked for Sony, worked for Nintendo for a while, and just got fed up with it. And I always wanted to make something, wanted to create things. And the person who lived across the road from my mum and dad had a sports car. And I said to Mum and Dad, what does he do? He said, well, he owns a dental laboratory. I said, right, that's what I want to be. So it was nothing but greed in the early days. But came to Manchester and did a course in dental technology at the then Manchester Polytechnic. Finished my course and went to work somewhere very close to where you are now. Outside Trinity High School and across the road is Manchester Dental Hospital. And I worked there for 11 years before I came half a mile north from you to Manchester Met. And started teaching here 1998. So I got into it partly by accident and partly by choice, but never regretted a day of it. So that's one question. Raina, have you got any questions about dental technology in general or what we've been doing today?
I don't know. Move on and I'll think of something.
Anna, have you got any?
So you can be a dentist, and what other jobs, is it I imagine, is this just someone who does this all day?
Yeah, this is the work of a dental technologist, not a dentist. A dentist is on the other side of the surgery door, so dentists see directly to the patient. We don't usually see the patient, but things you can do with a dental technology qualification is you can become a dental technologist, you can open your own laboratory, you can work in the armed forces, you can work in the National Health Service, and then other people do choose clinical dentistry as a route to go to after doing this. And we also have students can go on to do what's called reconstructive science, where they do artificial fingers, artificial ears, noses, facial prosthesis. We do splints for people who've been in car crashes. We make skull plates for people who've been shot, things like that. So we can restore any sort of body part really that's injured. So we've actually, I'm not sure if we've got one in here. If I can find it for you. We did have one this morning. If you can just give me a moment.
Yep.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Just give us a moment. I'll get a demo piece for you. Okay, if you think about making something here, which is just a very small tooth, but imagine now that we wanted to make this in metal or in a polymer, we would make a mold around it, and if this was wax, we could burn away the wax, and then in the space in between the mold, we could put silicone, we could put metal, or we could put acrylic resin. And when we take this to its conclusion in reconstructive science, we can make a hand prosthesis. The fingers, as you can see, move. They've got individual nails, and all this was made by someone who started work as a dental technologist. It's all the same sort of mold making, and this patient was born without two fingers. I can't really take it off to show you, but behind there were just two little stumps. This was one that was rejected by the patient, so we got to keep it. Had to be slightly refined, and it's essentially a glove. So the patient would, we can even reproduce all the fingerprints. The patient can even put rings on them to make them look real. And somebody then did go on to develop, they took this further and made the fingers where they could make gestures with the fingers by putting the joints from a Barbie doll in between the joints, and then they could allow it to be moved and they would stay there. So yeah, this is the work of what we call reconstructive science, and it's something you can do only when you've completed a dental technology degree.
Okay, so what kind of A-levels would you need for that?
A-levels for us, we need 3 A-levels roughly with 280 points. two Bs and a C at the moment. One of those must be a core science, chemistry, biology, physics, etc. So we definitely need the science content, because the core of dental technology is dental material science, understanding how all these materials work together. Because you can imagine if someone was allergic to cobalt chromium, for example, and we put a device in their mouth, then they'll have an allergy for it until the point they take it out. So we have to be aware of the different materials that we can use. Polymethyl methacrylate, or denture base, the pink acrylic you see for dentures, that's the most commonly used, but we'll also use, as I said before, cobalt chromium. I made my own wedding ring. I made that in wax, bought some gold, made a mold around it, attached some things called sprues, burned away the wax, and then I melted the gold and cast it. So I made my own wedding ring. But essentially, dental technology, when you have a gold crown made, it's made in exactly the same way. We make the tooth shape in wax, we put a mold around it, attach a thing called a sprue, and then when we put it in the furnace, all the wax is burned away and it leaves a tube from the outside down to where the wax used to be, and down there we send the gold, allow it to cool and knock away the mold, the same way that the lost wax technique, which you can look at, if you're anywhere on the internet, you can look at the lost wax technique. So there's loads of different things. It's not just teeth. We go from individual teeth to full mouth restorations, full arch restorations. There's a lot of patients, especially in the 60s, 70s, who don't have any teeth at all. And we call those complete dentures. And there's less and less of those now, because more and more patients are keeping the teeth. My uncle, he went to join the Merchant Navy when he was 21 years old, and they didn't have a dentist on the ship. So 2 weeks before he sailed, they took every tooth out in his head, and he went to sea without any teeth at all, because if you haven't got any teeth, you can't get a toothache. So fortunately, those days are gone. We don't have people having all the teeth taken out. We call that a clearance, and that is no longer done. So, have we got any questions from?
No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you've enjoyed this activity with us today and doing dental technology. A short exposure to it. We do have a Twitter hashtag, which is MMU Dental, all one word. It would be very interesting today if you could get some photographs of the work that you've done and share them with us on MMU Dental, and who knows, we might have some budding dental technicians in the future. And if you do consider to come and join us, we're only half a mile down the road from you. So hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll hand back to our cameraman Devin.
All right.